I want them to be educated, not just here's some facts, hire me, trust me, we're gonna get rocking. I want them to fully understand and have that plan in place. Like you said, that exit strategy. Like, hey, 3 years from now or 2.5 years from now, hit me up. Let's look at what the market's doing. Let's look at what's going on. And then we'll come up with that strategy. Like I was sitting with somebody yesterday. They bought a home about 14 months ago and they didn't use a realtor. They just went into a new construction, got into a house, and then now they're getting ready to leave. And honestly, even if I sold it at like 0.5%, they're upside down like 10 grand.
Yeah. Welcome to Real Estate Success DFW, the podcast where top producing agents from Dallas Fort Worth come together to share their stories and strategies behind their success. I'm Shaune Corbett, your host, and with over 300 million sold in the local real estate market and the honor of being best at the multiple times, I know what it takes to make it in this market. Each episode, we're going to dive into the world of real estate, learning from the very best in the industry. If you're ready to level up your game, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Shaune Corbett with Real Estate Success DFW, and I am super excited. We have got a star with us. His name is Ryan Phillips. He is with a brokerage, local realty agency, and the team he's on is the Great Home Team. How are you, Ryan?
Good. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. I did peek at your numbers and volume, and you're doing a fantastic. You're killing it. You know, I think I'm seeing like 20 plus transactions a year, which puts you probably in the top 1 to 2% of all agents. So you're floating right at the top. That's incredible. What do you think's really driving that? What's helped you grow? Because how long have you been in real estate? I feel like you're pretty new to it.
2 years. This is the beginning of my third year.
That's incredible. 2 years in the business. To close that many, I mean, I'm telling you, that's like well beyond, that's probably better than 99.5% of the market. You know, so full-time agents, we're floating probably, they're closing about, let's say one transaction a month is probably your top 3 to 4%. So you're doing even better than that in the first 2 years. So that's awesome. Did you find a really good niche that just like, wow, that makes sense? You know, I connect with that audience and I'm able to kind of work with them, or does everybody just like Ryan?
I mean, mostly it's veterans and active military, reservists. I recently retired from the Army in 2023. I'd already gotten my license at the end of 2022 and was kind of, you know, starting, it was on, they call it terminal leave, like the last few months, you know, you're off, and that's when I started really get going. But I kind of focused really with just, I try to help anybody and everybody. Of course, I've helped, you know, conventional loans or FHA, you know, non-VA, but a lot of it is the active military. And just because I recently came from there, or you go to any veterans, like I speak that language, so there's that big connection when people are, you know, if they're coming here to work and they call it PCS, permit change of station. I understand that completely. So that's just really kind of been my niche, really helping me skyrocket.
I want to talk a little bit about PCS a little bit later, because I think it's a really important component to some of the ways that you've really effectively done this, because we got problems, right? I mean, you're only going to be in a space for so long. Is a good investment? You know, that's what military has to always wait, you know, at a place for only about 2 to 3 years. You know, that's normally about the time it takes to get your investment repaid for the cost of sell. But there are other ways to think about it. And we want to dive into that in a little bit. But when I was, you know, kind of looking at you from the background on the Great Home Team that you work for, you guys really have a lot of videos, and you even have its own webpage specifically designed for veterans to gain more understanding of how the process works and the benefits and why we want to even consider a VA loan. I mean, that's really kind of one of your niches. And I think the team lead that you guys work with, he's also in the same space. Is that true? Was he military?
Yeah, he's retired like I was. He's been in the business since 2016. And I got in touch with him. First sergeant I had when I was stationed in California, she had just come from the Dallas battalion for recruiting. And she was like, hey, I got this guy for you, and connected me. And I just liked the way he did business. At the time, he was talking about starting a team. And I just liked the way, you know, his mind was set up, like how he envisioned helping people. and how he did business. And so I was like, hey, if I ever time comes and I'm retired, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. And that's exactly what happened. And we've been pretty good friends for a while. And then it's learned a lot. And that's kind of what's helped me also get to where I'm at real quick. But yeah, we just kind of like really focus. I don't want to say we only do veterans, but that's kind of been our big thing.
Yeah, I mean, niche in a kind of an exaggerated form, riches are in the niches. If you've ever heard that, right? So you can really hone down on a specific space, and there's no reason why you couldn't sell to non-veterans or doing any other loan. But if that's the language you speak and you're comfortable with it, and you know a lot about the VA loan and the process, and some of the headaches that you go through in the process, and some of the appraisal restrictions, and some of the requirements on WDI, and some of these technical things, and you really understand it, it's comfortable for you, there's nothing wrong with focus and being specific about it. One of the things that you wanted to kind of bring up was the VA loan. What about the VA loan is important, for you in your business or communicating with your clients?
Well, a
And
lot
why
of, I
is it a
mean, the
unique
big,
loan, right? What's the unique aspect of it?
I mean, for 1-0, you don't have to put any money down. It's fully insured. So that helps a lot of people. There's still closing costs involved. And I tell people like, that's all about negotiating. And I've done a pretty good job, even with new construction or pre-owned. Just recently, I just closed a deal, uh, when was it, Friday? And he pretty much got paid to buy the house,
Yeah.
with the money he got back. So I've done that quite a few times, but it's just it gives people flexibility of home ownership because not everybody has a ton of money saved up, and for people to want to use it, not all you really need is closing costs or earnest money deposit just to get the ball rolling. It does give them that freedom, and I've helped people that were told by other lenders, you're never going to be able to buy a house, you can't do it. There's no credit limit. It's really by the service provider, the lender, if they have any kind of restrictions on credit. But you can pay off, you can get up to 4% in concessions back of the sales price of the house, unlike conventional, which is 3. You can go past that, which I've done before, as long as it's going towards like a line of credit or rate buy down, stuff like that. So there's so much flexibility and so many things you can actually do with it to help individual buyers.
I like it. And so, what do you think, like the individual buyers dealing with the market today, what's some things that really come to mind when we're dealing with the current state of the market? Just finished the election, 2.5 years, and you came in the business, right? People might say, man, you came at the worst time because we have the lowest number of transactions, which is our turnover, which is how we make money by selling houses. It's the lowest turnover rate in real estate or transaction count in like 30 plus years. And you're still selling 2 or 3 houses a month. What is it about the state of the market and where you're at that's really made it work for you? I mean, how are you educating your clients?
Big thing is just looking, hey, interest rate, because if I'm working with active military, it's called basic allowance for housing. It depends on the area. So really out here, I have like the Fort Worth side, Dallas side. It's kind of like, if you're on the Dallas side, you're getting more a month. So when I got people that are coming over for the Fort Worth side, you got to look at, I find more deals and cheaper homes over in Forney, Crandall, Ferris area for people. But it's just educating them too. Hey, we got to look at what are you comfortable with your payment? What do your finances look like? Because I don't want them to be in dire straits, especially when I look at, hey, if you're going to have to move here in 3 years, where are you going to be positioned at on trying to sell this house? Or if you get into it, what are the rental rates going on in that area? Does it match currently what your mortgage is now? It's not going to be the same, but in 2 or 3 years, will those rates for rent go up to kind of match, so you're not paying out of pocket to keep that house going, and then it does become that investment for you? Or looking at, I have a lot of clients right now that bought in 2022, which was like the craziest, highest. A lot of them were, they didn't. I wasn't licensed in, and they didn't use me to buy, but they have agents that are, hey, you got to pay 10, 15 grand over asking just to get this house. Now they're with me and they're trying to sell it, and it's like, man, that kind of puts you in a spot. I always want people to make a little money. Worst case, break even. I'd never want anybody to have to owe. So it's just kind of coming up with solutions to help them out. But looking at the market now, I think it's definitely, and I identified this a couple of years ago, was like, this is definitely more of a buyer's market, even though we're under that 6 months of inventory, technically seller's market. and you could see the trajectory with months of supply. So it gives the buyers now a lot more options, and sellers are more inclined to cover closing costs. You might even get a deal where you're not having to overpay anymore. You might get it under, but it just really comes down to like the individual person. And I always say, like, for buyers, it's a good time, and look at it, long-term investment. That's one thing you really got to look at. So when you're going through a home, if it's really in bad shape, it's going to cost a lot just to get it to be livable, or to where 3-4 years from now they're going to sell it, someone's going to want it. I got to be upfront with them, like, hey, this might not be the best investment for you. I'm seeing you're going to have to dump 20-30 grand into here to even get it to where marketable. So I'm sure you've seen too, like, so there's a lot of homes. I have a lot of clients this past year. We're going through houses and they're like, man, someone's trying to sell it in this state. So you got to kind of like make sure they're getting into a good situation. Cause I've had clients before now that have sold in the last year or two, and the home is just not good at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, why did you think this was a good idea? Especially this, and it makes it very difficult,
Yeah. Yeah. Low selection will change your mind pretty quick on what you can afford and what you got to do to get it up and running. And I like that. So one of the things you talked about, I want to snow over this, is important. When we're having conversations with our clients, we're buying a home, you're building in an exit strategy. And I'm telling you, like 90% of agents don't do that. They just want to make the money. Right. Mm-hmm. So our objective is, I want you to call me in 3 years and still have a good relationship with me and not be mad at me. Right. And that's kind of the language I use with my clients. I just say, hey, I want to make sure we're on good terms in 3 years. You need to know what you're getting into. And I'll even tell them up front, say, hey, by the way, you need to live here for 5+ years. If you're good with that, fine, let's do it. But if I think that it's still going to marginally increase, we got to cover 2 to 3 years. I usually will tell them up front. But one of the exit strategies you talked about was, rent. So in the military, you're up and going, and you could be up and going in 2 to 3 years. And you don't have time to cover the cost of sale, but at least my mortgage is $2,000, the rent's $2,000. That's not a bad situation.
Yeah.
Those are important things to consider.
Yeah. Cause I've had people say, hey, I leave in a year. I leave in like 15 months. I leave in 8 months. I'm thinking about buying a duplex and turn it into a rental property. Well, it's like, okay, you can use your VA loan, say that's your primary residence for now, and not have to, go get a loan where you got to put 20% down with a high interest rate. But you got to look at it, unless you have a substantial amount of money saved up that you're going to put down on there, so your mortgage payment equals what rental rates are right now, it's probably not a good idea. But there are people that, and I know there's agents out there be like, hey, you want to buy a house? Sure, let me get you into a home. And then a year later,
they not educate the buyer.
Yeah. And that's one thing too. I always do my consultations and we really go over, it might seem long to some people, but usually with like a buyer consultation, hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe we're talking listing consultations, maybe there for 2-3 hours, sometimes longer. Cause we're going over so much just to I want them to be educated, not just here's some facts, hire me, trust me, we're going to get rocking. I want them to fully understand and have that plan in place. Like you said, that exit strategy, like, hey, 3 years from now or 2.5 years from now, hit me up. Let's look at what the market's doing. Let's look at what's going on. And then we'll come up with that strategy. Like I was sitting with somebody yesterday. They bought a home about 14 months ago, and they didn't use a realtor. They just went into a new construction, got into a house, and then now they're getting ready to leave. And honestly, even if I sold it at like 0.5%, they're upside down like 10 grand.
Yeah.
So
the builder is probably still building there.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So that makes it impossible. Yeah. You can't buy pre-owned, or if you're going to buy a new build, that's fine, but you got to at least wait the time for the builder to get out. It's really hard to sell a used home when builders have unlimited resources, it feels like, to fight against you, and no one wants to buy something used if they can buy new.
Yeah. And I always ask when we're at the sales reps, like, how many phases do you guys have planned? What do you guys look? When are you going to start that phase? How long do you think you're going to be here till you move out? And that's one thing. If they're like, oh yeah, we got about another year or two. Okay, cool. Because I just don't want them. I tell them you can't be competing with new construction. With the builder being right there, no one's going to want the same house that you've already lived in. They rather just go get new with, a lot of times they have those really good interest rates, crazy incentives, moving packages. So it's real tough.
Have you done any assumables?
No, I have been with some of my listings. People, want to assume, but again, I use a lot of veterans, so I always tell them with an assumable loan that you really only want to let a veteran assume it.
Yeah.
We've gotten offers from non-veterans trying to assume, and I said that's not a good idea. You're not going to get your eligibility back. If worst case they foreclose on that house or they default, you're gonna lose that completely. And it's sometimes even the loans may not even be assumable. So it's stuff we got to look at. But I had a friend that is in the service, and about a year and a half ago, he was selling his house, and he went under contract on assumable, and I just told him, like, hey man, good luck. I hope it works out. It's a long process, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, it's 45 to 60 days minimum for sure. I've done several now, and I did one VA, and my buyer was not a veteran, but that seller had no need for their benefit any longer because they were older and they paid cash for the next house. So they were willing to give it up just to get the house moved.
Yeah.
And they sold it to the right person. My client is A++. Like they could pay cash for the house, but they wanted the 2.5% interest rate or whatever crazy rate she got. And she put up the 150,000 because it's the biggest problem is you got to cover that equity. That's the biggest problem with getting assumables to work. That's what makes them hard to do because we gained so much equity the last few years that most people don't have the money to cover the equity shortage.
Yeah, or even if you're trying to get a second mortgage, you got to go through that service provider. They might not do it. And I had a client my first year that was trying to do that. My buddy Will, my business partner, he actually had the seller. I had the buyer, and the buyer really wanted to try to assume it. But even when I was doing the math, quick math was like, even for that, if you assume that, and then you have to take out because he didn't have the cash, even if they allowed for a second mortgage and you were paying on that, it equaled out to you just going to buy the house right now. So that's what he ended up doing. He just did just purchased it.
No.
And we made it happen.
Yeah, no, that's great. Let's talk about one of the things that I think because you talk about exit strategies, when we're educating people, and what's really unique about your space is you have high turnover, which is really good for an agent, but you have to have a lot of education included as part of that process. Make sure they know that they're not getting in and getting upside down, since they may only be there a short term. So I like that you talk about exit strategy. Long-term benefits of owning real estate was one of the things that I think you've got a lot of passion for. How do you educate people with that space? Because you have high turnover with your particular clientele. How do you educate them in that space?
Well, because some do real well and they can put a pretty good down payment down, even though it's not needed. We always go over that. Hey, let's look at if you put X amount down. Because I've had some clients like, hey, I want to put 100,000 down on my house. Whoa, that's maybe a little too much. Just enough to where let's look at what rental rates are right now. And if we can get your mortgage to be that, the rates, they always go up. They don't ever stay the same when you're looking at rentals. Now, it's not going to go up like $500 a year or nothing. We don't get that crazy. But kind of come up with the plan like, hey, I'm not trying to, I don't go in there trying to always like, I'm just trying to make money off you guys. I'm really just trying to be here to help you. That's what my big thing is. And if it ends up coming up where, hey, 3 years from now you're leaving and you can rent it out, it's just like an investment. Let it go. And I learned that the hard way, where I didn't purchase a home when I first got stationed in Los Angeles. I was a recruiter. So my first duty station is recruiting back in 2013. And homes then were like probably high 290s range, 330 range. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to buy a house. I'm just going to rent my 2-bedroom apartment for $2,400 a month. I'll be good. And I look at what they were selling for just a few years later. And then I had a buddy that bought two when he was down there, sold one a couple years ago, made like 500 grand. I'm like, man. So when we ended up in 2017, we went back to our hometown on a compassionate reassignment. Told my wife we're buying a house. We bought the house. I came out here at the end of 2020. We decided to rent the home because we looked at selling. Would have made, a good little amount. But I saw that just those 3 years that we lived there, how much you can make on that, or just keep it renting. Well, I was getting ready to retire, and we decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and sell it because we didn't know what the next chapter in my life was going to be like. And we made a huge amount just from that renting for that year. It was like 6-figure difference because of the big boom from 2021, 2022.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I'm like, now it's like, man, that's, if you look at the history, it just makes sense over time. And I tell people, you're not going to get that big crazy jump anymore. That I got lucky, right? But still, if you look at over time, you look at some of the people that bought homes 30, 40 years ago, what those home values are now. So
Sure.
over time, just like any kind of investment. So just to have it to maintain, to make sure it's actually good, though. You don't want to get something that's going to be a money pit, something that's way outdated. You might have to update it a little bit to keep it maintained and moving forward. But over time, it's very beneficial.
Yeah, generally real estate will outpace the stock market. And even when the stock market flies down, real estate's still steadily going up. You're not going to get 20% a year. Those are not realistic, but you're generally going to get 3 to 5% every year over 20, 30 years. I mean, so it's just a good, safe opportunity. And there's tax benefits and there's other really core benefits that help. You mentioned that you feel like every veteran should utilize their VA loan benefit. So
I,
they're here stationed in a short period of time or whatever their situation is. What do you do to advise, those veterans, or maybe they're retired and they just live in a rental property? Why do you really advise everyone to make sure they utilize it?
a big, just what I kind of just went over, like I personally learned and I've seen, and just real estate in general, like you said, sometimes it even does better than the stock market.
So your
But
specific example is you missed out on an opportunity and you could have utilized your loan right there, zero down, knocked out a loan, paid the same 2,500 a month or whatever, owned a house, and then just held on to it. And then you
yeah,
saw examples of two people that did really well. Oh, the one guy owned two properties, just killed it.
and there are active military and veterans out there that do that, and I've served with them, and I've had people that are now clients who are like, yeah, I was talking to this guy that he bought everywhere he went, and I was like, yeah, you just gotta make sure you're buying, to me, the right home, and you gotta have the right person guiding you and helping you solve that issue, because you like you said earlier, some people are just chasing that quick buck and they just want to get somebody into something real quick, where even if, for me, I don't try to maximize, where I'm just trying to get them in there and thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to make another 3% in 3 years when they leave. Now, granted, with the markets, because I have some clients now that they bought at the height at 2022, I'll maybe cut them a break, but just to help them out enough to where it's good to go. Now, some people don't want any business with renting; they just want it gone. I try to talk still during the listening presentation, give them all the information, and I just let them make that decision. I can only advise. I can't force somebody to do anything, or even people that are coming in. Some people just want to rent. I had a client, I helped them rent a house last year. The family's growing. They hit me up. Credit got better. And I was like, hey, you might want to look at purchasing. You're doing really good out here. You can actually extend and stay an extra year. I know a spot I can get you in a really good house for a really good price. And to me, that's an investment for you years down the road. They don't know, we don't like Texas. We don't want to stay here. Let's just rent. Hey, too easy. You make those decisions for yourself. But then I look at it as like they put a lot of money to get the next rental. I've had people spend more money, putting down a security deposit, first month's rent, maybe prorated amount, whatever, than it would cost them to go buy a house.
Yeah, in your space, the VA benefit versus putting down all, because I'm right now I'm in a lease market. I've probably leased out 7 or 8 houses in the last month and a half, and they do have to put up quite a bit of money up front.
Oh yeah,
They could, if
yeah.
they had a veteran benefit, they certainly wouldn't have to put near as much up. You talked about PCS earlier, and I know that's a military term. Say what PCS, what does it stand for?
Permanent change of station. So it's pretty much you're moving. You're
Okay.
going from one duty station to the next.
And you think it's important for agents to understand the VA loan process and what VA loans do for them and what the PCS impact is. Why do you say that?
Because a lot of people that are just don't understand, and they'll get these veterans that hit them up, or maybe active military. Hey, I'm looking to buy a house. I'm going to use my VA loan. Oh, great. Maybe they do one or two a year, maybe every other year, and if they don't understand that they're not going to be here for 5 or 6 years. So the home that you find them, that you're going to help them buy, you have to advise them to get the right one, because everybody's buying power is different. even though they're in the military. Their DTI could be different, whatever. I've had a client that last year, for instance, his buying power was not very high. And I tell people, if I got to go look at 40 houses for you or with you, too easy, let's do it. I started last year doing that with a client. I ended this last year doing the same thing with another client. I don't look at it as like, hey, first day out, we got to find the house, or we're going to go look at 4 homes and you got to pick which one you want. So people that don't understand that, they have to make sure that they have an exit plan, and then you're just not trying to get them into anything. They got to look at what kind of home they're getting into. Because I could have gotten my client into any house that we found that were not very good at all, but he would have a very difficult time. It would put him in a huge financial hole 3 years from now. And you don't want to do that. So you got to find the right one, find them the right deal, be patient, and get them into something that I feel very confident in 3 years when he hits me up. It's like, hey, I got to, if he's renting it or he's selling it, we're not going to have any issues doing so.
Yeah. What about using VA disability here in the state of Texas? What's a unique benefit, or why is that a unique situation? I mean, how does that come up? I've got several VA buyers that have disability benefits and they get some income from it. But what are you specifically thinking is a real benefit in the real estate transaction or here in Texas?
So Texas, if you have 100% disability, you don't pay any property taxes, and that's a huge game changer. For me, myself, I got 100%, and my mortgage went down like $900 a month. Like right now, my truck payment is more than my house payment. My house is only 4 years old. It's nice. It wasn't just something low run down. So that helps. That's a game changer. I've had clients that they were getting out recently, married couple, got them a new home. Wife was at 90%, and then the husband just got his 100%. And that actually increases buying power. If you have somebody that's 100% and you're working with the right lender, they'll factor that in even before with the pre-approval. So I had clients actually went from being only pre-approved for like 350 to now they're up to 500, 525,000 in buying power because of that benefit, and then the extra income they're going to get in. Now, if someone is like 90% or less, it just I've learned it depends on the county, but they can still get some tax breaks off the appraised value, when they file that exemption with the homestead exemption or partial disability. Not every county does it, but there are a lot that are out here that might knock off $5,000, $10,000, $12,000 off that appraised value. So it does help tax purpose wise. But the big one is if they get that 100%, it's a real big game changer out here in Texas.
That's an incredible opportunity. I'm glad you pointed that out, because that can definitely get you more of a house without the tax, costs. I mean, that's huge. What's a good way to get in touch with you or connect with you?
Just giving me a call, a text. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, shoot me a message, email me. I have all my contacts on there. I tell people I work 24/7. I don't have certain days off. I kind of take a day whenever time permits. I work a lot of maybe 6 hours, 8 hours a day. Sometimes there's 4 hours a day, but I'm very flexible. So if someone calls me, unless I'm in the middle of a consultation or I'm actually showing homes, I will try to get back to you as soon as I can.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Ryan. Thank you for jumping on and doing a podcast with me. I appreciate the interview opportunity.
Oh, I appreciate you inviting me. It was a good time.
Well, very good. Well, I appreciate this call. This is Real Estate Success DFW with Shaune Corbett, and we had another great podcast. For more information, Ryan had left out his information. We're going to post it in each one of the posts that we have, and definitely follow up with him if you're looking for a solid agent that will take care of you. Obviously specializes in the veteran space, and I appreciate it. Last thing, we made a connection through Tyler Hodgson. He's actually the one that connected both of us. Tyler said a lot of good things about Ryan and thought it would be a really good fit. So thank you, Tyler. Wanted to give him a shout out as well. And that's the end of this show. Have a high performance week. Thank you. That wraps up another episode of Real Estate Success DFW. I hope you're leaving with new insights that push your real estate career forward. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with fellow agents who's ready to succeed. And if you're interested in working together or have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly. My personal phone is 214-228-0383. Let's connect and make real estate success happen together. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'm Shaune Corbett, and this is the Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week.